And we are live, starting with the intro. There we go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Late Night Serotonin, our little show here once a week where we go over a variety of topics in more depth than we usually would be able to on TikTok, which is our main discipline. We have a couple of lovely guests here today, which I will give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. Top of the round, Kat. Let us know who you are. Give us your name, your pronouns, and a little bit about yourself.
I'm Kat the Vat. I use they and she pronouns, and I am currently making content about business.
All right. Sweetie Python, names, pronouns, and a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I go by Sweetie or Python, whatever makes you more comfortable. My pronouns are they, them, and I am always watching you from underneath your floorboards.
All right. Lovely. With that comforting bit of information all in our minds, for those of us who may be joining us for the first time, I am Lady Avalon, host of Serotonin Studios. I am a transgender, lesbian, socialist, polyamorous, disabled, atheist, and I'm a ginger. Find which one of those you find most offensive and put it down in the comments down below. Like the stream if you enjoy it. We have a great show for you tonight. And with that, we'll go ahead and cut the music and we'll jump into our first topic, which I'll go ahead and open the show. Biden touts federal deficit, largest one-year drop in American history. Biden on Friday touted the recent figures showing that the federal budget deficit fell by $1.4 trillion in the fiscal year of 2022 from the prior year's levels as Democrats work to fend off Republican attacks on the economy and inflation ahead of the midterm elections. This is, I think, good news. It once again shows that the American economy always does better under Democrats, and that while conservatives will call themselves conservatives, conservatives spend more than Democrats ever do. They at the same time they spend more on like the military budget while they want to slash necessary institutions like Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. Things that people are dependent on, especially in these extremely trying times, especially when, many seniors are struggling to pay for all of their medicine. Republicans still want to tax such valuable institutions, but when Democrats are in power, they expand social spending, making it easier for the little guy to get by, and the economy does better. Largest single year drop in American history. More people are employed than have ever been in our nation's history. The unemployment rate is at its lowest in literal decades. All around, with unions on the rise, I'd say Biden has had a solidly positive effect on the economy. Could there be things that he could be doing better? Sure, we can always argue over those details. I certainly think he should be doing more, but I think he's had a largely positive effect. Thoughts?
Some people are also saying that the decline of the deficit can be attributed to the expiration of temporary COVID relief and not due to a renewed era of fiscal responsibility, according to Maya McGinnis, president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. She's saying that the deficit would have been almost $400 billion lower had the Biden administration not decided to enact an inflationary, costly, and regressive student debt cancellation back in August. Okay. I don't know. I think student debt cancellation helps literally everyone. And it still would have been like this. She's saying like, yeah, but we could have done better if we hadn't helped people out of their student loan debt. Why is she trying to take away this huge victory? Like, having the debt is huge, or having the deficit is huge. We've never done that before.
Mm-hmm. And for those who may be joining us for the first time, the reason why cancellation of student debt is so important is because once they're not being forced to pay off their debt, once they're not crushed under that, they have more money to spend in the economy. They can spend it, they can save it, they can invest it in small businesses. And we know that, well, my camera is not working. Come back to me. Okay. They can invest in small businesses, and we know that that generations like the millennials were starting more small businesses than any other previous generation ever had. We're going to turn off that. We're going to turn it back on. There we go.
And this is also in the wake of Biden's sprawling climate, healthcare, and tax bill dubbed the Inflation Reduction Act, to the enjoyment of furries everywhere.
To the enjoyment of what?
I didn't say that last part, and you can't prove it.
You're on camera.
No, but he did sign in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was supposed to help with the massive amounts of inflation and price gouging that Americans have been seeing this past year. And it's supposed to reallocate funds, basically, as well as help with like more climate disaster prevention stuff, put it simply.
All in all, I think we can say pretty solidly, Democrats are good for the economy because spending money on your citizens is an investment that pays for itself 7 times over. You know, I remember reading an article a while back where they were talking about how, studies have shown when you invest in things like Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, you know, those services will pay for themselves, because now that people aren't, you know, burning a lot of money on extremely expensive services that are provided now by the government for either no cost or very reduced costs at the point of service, they are able to spend that money elsewhere. And also, when people are able to go to things like a doctor on a regular basis, they are in less need of like they engage in preventative care rather than reparative care, and they're able to go back to the economy and work for longer without being stuck, being sick or injured or disabled because illnesses stuck around for too long and sort of screwed them over. I myself can say from personal experience, you know, I had insurance recently to get a root canal, and that was not fun, the root canal, but having my insurance cover it through Medicaid did help a lot, because I didn't have the money to do that. I'm very low income. I'm very poor. But my insurance covered it, and I only had to take 1 day off of work instead of multiple weeks off of work because my jaw was in so much pain. Finally got that done. I was able to return to work. I was able to start building up the money so that I can build up the cash to get a cap put in. And if you'd like to help pay for that cap, you can support me over on patreon.com/Serotonin Studios.
Yay.
With that,
I did notice going to places, sorry, I'm going to do a little tangent here, but going to places that have like socialized medical care, like Canada, it's crazy to me because I was talking about my personal finances and comparing them to my friends who lives in Canada. And they had recently received a big bonus from their work, and they were talking about like, oh, maybe I'll get like some new furniture for my apartment because mine's falling apart, or maybe I'll get like a new piece for my computer. And I was like, what? You're not gonna like put that in savings? And they're like, why? I have savings. And they told me they had like a couple thousand or whatever. And I was like, well, what if you have a medical emergency? And they were like, the state pays for that. And that just blew my mind. The medical emergency, not a big deal in most of the developed world.
Mm-hmm.
We could be living like that, fellow Americans. We just have to make it happen. Sorry, I just had to do some socialist propaganda for a second.
Go ahead. We're all lefties here. Yeah, it's extremely helpful when you have, you know, when you don't have to worry about things like, am I gonna go bankrupt because I got sick? you know. Especially, I was actually talking with someone today about, I was talking about the root canal I just had done, and I was like, boy howdy, isn't it great we live in a country that doesn't consider your teeth and your eyeballs part of your overall health? You know, that's so lovely. You know, just I love that for us.
Oh
What a
yeah.
nightmare we live in.
I'm wearing contact lenses right now that I ordered from the UK, which is legally dubious, but it's because it's so much cheaper there because they get money from the government to bolster medical services, and so they also don't experience the crazy amount of price gouging we get. Because
Mhm.
here in America, it's like hundreds of dollars for like a couple months. There, it's like $10 for a month. It's America's healthcare system is
Yeah.
not only not bolstered by the government, but is actively taken advantage of and price gouged by those providing the services. It's a double whammy of just horribleness.
Hmm.
Everyone's wallet cries.
And you know, speaking of healthcare and the economy, that does bring one man to mind, one senator from Vermont, Bernard Sanders. And in a recent article, Sanders says that he's worried about Democratic midterm turnout and urges focus on the economy. The Vermont senator defended the administration's handling of the post pandemic economy, with recent polling suggesting that top voters' minds are headed into the November 8th election. So, with going into the midterms, what do we think will be, the most important? Sanders says that we should focus on the economy, um, and uh, and that maybe abortion isn't the issue to tie the cart to. What do we think? Do we think abortion is the most important issue that's going to drive people to the polls and drive a Democratic victory? Or is Sanders correct and we need to switch gears to focus on the economy? Thoughts and prayers.
I think
I
abortion
think it's
is. Oh, wait, you go.
focused multiple directions because if we only focus on one, we'll lose. Because the other side, the people on the right are focusing on all kinds of different issues to get like small groups of people to support them. We can't expect one issue to be like the saving grace, in my personal opinion. So, to answer, we should focus on abortion and the economy and all of the other issues that this would bring.
True. What should be the flagship issue, though? What should be the tent pole issue, the rallying point?
The fact that they have self-dubbed themselves as Christian theocratic fascists. That is the rallying point. That is definitely my red flag. That's where I'm staking it.
So you
That's
think
so true.
so you think contrasting and sort of hitting on the point that, hey, these people are dangerous, you should be afraid of them, and out of fear of them you should vote for us. That is you think that's a viable strategy?
Well, not just fear of them, fear of becoming a theocracy.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm talking utilitarian strategy here. I actually tend to agree with Sanders. I think people are going to be heavily focused on the economy. And while certainly abortion is a top issue, it's in the top 3 issues on people's minds right now. The unfortunate reality is, for the most people care more about the economy because the economy more directly affects them. Um, Not everyone is getting an abortion. Only half the population is, and even then, not the entirety of that half of the population. Only people who need it, which is a not everyday occurrence. Whereas
I agree with the focus on economy.
the economy screws everyone every day, all the way through. And while certainly, we just talked about with the last story, the economy is doing better. Inflation is screwing people. High levels of like, people are working, but the jobs they're working aren't paying them enough to live off of. And with inflation rising because of corporate greed, and massive wealth inequality, the richest are getting richer and the poor are staying poor. and it's becoming too expensive to stay poor. So either they fix that issue by a little bit, or there's gonna be unrest. They're gonna struggle to sway support to their side. You know, especially like Democrats, if they want people to go out and vote for them, voting many times can be a luxury because it's not a national holiday, you know? So people have to choose, am I going to take the day off of work to stand in line for multiple hours to go vote? Or do I put another day's work in? And if they're low income, like I'm low income, that might have to be a decision that they have to make, being like, you know, I'm lucky I live out in the middle of fucking nowhere. So, you know, when I want to go vote, I like drive like 20 minutes, you know, that way or that way. And I go to like a small like building that's like 1 story tall and it's like a modified trailer. And I vote there. And it's fine because no one's around. There's like
Easy.
5 people in like 50 square miles. But people who live in cities, they're not going to have that luxury, especially with polling places getting shut down left and right. Thank you, Republicans.
Yeah.
Which bottlenecks.
And the ones that are left are getting watched by random grassroots militias who still think that the Trump loss was fake and a hoax.
Yeah. Where was it? I have it right here.
Maricopa County, my hometown.
Armed and masked ballot watchers sat by a ballot drop box in Arizona, prompting police investigation. So yeah, a bunch of dudes in tactical gear and masks with guns stood exactly 75 feet away from the ballot box, which is just far enough away to technically not be counted as voter intimidation by the laws. The police came, investigated, measured, and were like, yeah, they're more than 75 feet away, so we technically can't do anything. Which is a little bit annoying because I would like to remind those officers that guns can fire at a distance greater than 75 feet. So
yeah,
I'd
but
say
Arizona's
they're still
a constitutional carry state, so you can have a gun wherever you want.
So I have a question for you two.
Yeah,
do you think this to lean heavier into the state and like the police, or do you think the solution is to take like for us to also be going to these locations with supplies like this, you know, like I guess, do you think that, yeah, which way do you think, like taking matters into our own hands as like leftists or leaning into authority in like the state?
I think we should bring all of the people we know who are elderly and children and have them just stand around the ballot box as a human shield. I think that is. Also, I have a question. Like, what are these guys with like fucking combat gear and guns? What are they planning on do if they see somebody with like a fucking fake mustache and a fake ID going and sending off their ballot? Like, are you gonna shoot him? That's not legal. Even if you have proof that he's like committing voter fraud in front of your face, still illegal to shoot him. Still illegal to hold up your gun and tell him to leave, because that's voter intimidation. You have to leave that up to the government. Like, that's their job to figure out what's voter fraud and what's not. You as a civilian shouldn't be involved in that. I think we should change the law around like voter intimidation laws. I think it should be like you can't be within, I would say like you can't be within a fucking mile of the place with a gun, no matter if you're in a constitutional carry state or not, because that's like one of the cornerstones of democracy. And I don't think that bringing a bunch of like leftists with guns into it would necessarily help diffuse anything.
Yeah. And you know for a fact that those guys in tactical gear, you know, if they see someone who looks like me, you know, the way I'm dressed right now, walk up and cast a vote, they're not going to bother me. But if either of you two went to cast a ballot, that might catch their attention. Should someone dare to be black and dare to have pronouns and dare to have blue hair, that might get their attention. Or God forbid all three. Or God forbid all three. That might get their attention. Um, this
I said
actually,
Lil Uzi, all
yeah.
three.
This actually reminds me. A while back, there was a real hilarious video of a bunch of fascists, like Proud Boys, who were like training with like riot shields and doing shield walls, and everyone was laughing at them, going, "Ha ha ha! You think you're going to overthrow the government with that?" But I saw a really good TikTok explaining that video. They're not planning on overthrowing the government. They have their guns and they do their training and they do stuff like that. They have no illusions, or maybe some of them are delusional enough. But in reality, they're not training to overthrow the government. They're training to act as an extra legal arm of the Republican Party to murder and kill political dissidents while still giving the Republican Party deniability. Proud Boys
They don't
stand back and stand by.
they don't want to take over the government. They want to take over their neighborhood. They want to make it inhospitable for anybody who doesn't agree with their political agenda, which frankly, having lived in Arizona in various areas of Maricopa County, they do a damn good job of, because like, especially in areas where those sort of political ideas are prominent, you can't go 20 feet without seeing some fucking Trump memorabilia, or worse, something that's like just straight up hateful for minorities, or like people are wild with how they decorate their lawns in Arizona, and the way that they go out with like biker parties of like 5 to 10, and they all have a gun on their back, and they all got like memorabilia, various right-wing shit, some of it Nazi, some of it just like, oh, I watched the Joe Rogan podcast. It's all mixed together. And it really does make you feel unsafe as like a queer person, or God forbid, a person of color. Like there were certain areas that I would not take my friends of color in, because I didn't feel safe, and I didn't want to put them in that position.
Oh yeah, speaking of the queer people being afraid, on one side of my house, down one, I live in a neighborhood, and one of the houses down one road next to us is a Confederate flag, and down the other side is a Trump 24 flag. So, and here I am in the middle, we have a gay flag out front. We have received complaints.
Also, I want to point out that armed ballot watchers, they were there for the Trump election. Like, this all happened before. The same thing was going on in the last election, when everybody was claiming voter fraud, despite there being multiple counts of dudes with guns standing just outside of the fucking ballot areas. Like, and I want to also... Oh, sorry?
I'm sorry. I just think I might have a misunderstanding. Are they there to stop voter fraud, or are they there to stop, like, people they don't want to vote? Or, like, intimidate the people they don't want to vote? Like, you're talking
people
about
they don't want to vote.
Like,
yeah, they're claiming it's to stop voter fraud, but it's really to intimidate people.
Yeah.
They're saying one thing and doing another. I also would like to put some disrespect onto, what's his name? Dinesh D'Souza. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. And his book / documentary, 2000 Mules, which is just pure garbage of unverified nonsense. And this is where a lot of like the media push has been for the whole like the vote was stolen. And this is a part of like what's gaining it so much traction, because people are watching this movie and reading this book that is like signed off from President Donald Trump, saying like all of this is factually true because it's not made by a journalist and journalists are evil. And they're calling for people to create like little militias to defend the vote, which is just completely deplorable and contrary to democracy. So fuck you, Dinesh.
Yeah, and to that end, we see the January 6th committee subpoenaing Donald Trump. And we just saw, I reported on it a few days ago, Steve Bannon is being sent to jail for contempt of Congress for not complying with his subpoena, demonstrating that they are willing to throw people in jail a year later for not complying with their subpoenas. That this investigation is serious, and
And
it's
this
got
was
some
who
teeth
again?
to it. This was Steve Bannon, Trump's like number 2 guy for a while. And what was it you said? The people around Trump have accrued like 36 years in
30 years so far
30
in
years
total jail
in jail
sentences.
time.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I try and tell this to like Republican and conservative friends of mine when they say like Trump is so innocent. I'm like, if he's so innocent, why is it that literally everyone around him ends up being like a criminal all the time? Like, and they get jailed over and over and get caught doing so many crimes.
Because he's just a regular guy, Lady Avalon. That's what they always tell me. He's just a regular guy. I like him for that reason.
Yeah, regular
Ugh.
guys with giant skyscrapers built with their name on it. Okay, sure. Yeah, my dad has one of those too. Totally.
And, you know, looking at the House, you know, with the midterms coming up. Oh, speaking of, a good piece of news for the midterms. Before we go any further, early voter turnout for 2022 midterms is on pace to meet record-setting 2018, which is great. As of October 2018, 5 million people had already voted. And in those midterms, this would just suggest that the numbers for 2022 are on par with 2018, which is
See,
neat.
Democrats already figured it out. Instead of dealing with the voter intimidation happening at the ballot box, just become an early voter. They can't intimidate you at your own house.
Mm-hmm.
Genius. Galaxy
I'm pretty
brained.
my own house, but
Wait, what?
no, I just said I'm pretty intimidated even in my own house.
It's the weight of the world.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, you know, looking at the numbers from 538, it is 81 to 100 that Republicans win the House. And if
81
or
to
when they
19.
do, they're probably going to disband the January 6th committee.
Why? But they're just
They have that power.
But it's
So-
a crime.
And from earlier stands, y'all.
Huh?
Do we take it into our own hands, or do we lean into the state?
Well, if the
okay, so
state's a bunch of people.
You're essentially asking, you know, at what point in Nazi Germany would it be acceptable for the Jews to take up arms against the Nazi government? I don't think I can answer that question here on YouTube without breaking terms of service.
See, I don't think that by the time it gets to the point where people are fighting in the streets, so to speak, it's already
As
too
we
late.
said earlier, you know, they're not training to overthrow the government, nor should you. Unfortunately, you know, I saw some leftists a while back, you know, they're like, oh, see, if you know, a bunch of unorganized idiots could do January 6th, imagine what an organized group of leftists could do. And my response to that is you'd be turned into a fine red mist. You'd be turned into chunky salsa. January 6th happened not because of the competence of the rioters, but because it was allowed to happen, because the people in power weakened the security systems and let it happen. That's how it happened. Leftists would get no such luxury. You would be turned into chunky salsa. A fucking Amazon air drone would fucking machine gun you before you ever managed to make it to the steps of the Capitol. Not to mention the like 6 or 7 small armies of security officers that surround the nation's capital. It would never happen. Sorry, the trans girl, cat girl army is not going to overthrow the United States through military force. An armed revolution will not happen.
Which is why stuff like this is super important, because as long as people like us are allowed to speak and have a platform, you know that people like the ones who let Jan 6 happen aren't entirely in control of the media, which is very, very important. We can't let any political party have 100% control of the media, no matter what. even
Yeah.
though my dream is for, leftist utopia.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a reformist. I think that is the most pragmatic and practical way. We need to start running for office. We have to bite the bullet and vote for people we don't like Joe Biden and other Democrats. But we vote for
But I
what
don't
progressives we
wanna.
can. We run what progressives we can. We topple neolibs. We topple conservatives. We get more people like Bernie Sanders and AOC and Ilhan Omar in office, as many as we can. And then to any of the remaining Democrats that are in power, we bully the shit out of them uh, to
Ratio
be
them.
to be as leftist as possible. Join your local Democrats chapter. Again, I live out in the middle of nowhere, so like I'm surrounded by Republicans, and even then, I'm actually reading through each of the Republicans' like statements and positions to pick who's the softest target that I can maybe like ply to be like, but you don't actually want to commit a genocide, do you? And see what ground I can get there.
Also, if you
Um,
have a Democratic chapter in your local area and it sucks, just create another one. You can never have too many.
yeah,
So wait, I have a question though, right?
go
Because
ahead.
we're looking at what is that, 81 and 19, right?
Yeah,
Those are
Mhm.
for
not
the
good options.
House. Yeah,
And
it
you've already
it looks like we're
80.
gonna win the Senate though. We got 55 for the Democrat Senate. It's gonna be a tight race, but looks like we might
That's a
pull ahead.
that's a coin flip. That's not comfortable enough for
Yeah,
comfort.
Yeah.
not
But
as much
so
as the House. Yeah,
we lose it, but then what? They disband Jan 6. That's
Mhm.
over. He doesn't get charged. So 2024 is all that's all we have until. Like it's not like we win by like I don't know. It feels like a very long-term strategy to do all of the politicians, and it just feels like we don't have a long-term amount of time for a strategy.
Yeah. I'm aware of that.
What's
That's a very
what's
real
even more
problem.
concerning is that although Donald Trump hasn't announced anything about running for presidency,
Oh, he
Marjorie
has.
Taylor Greene has. And she has claimed that she is in continuous discussion with Donald Trump about running with him for office. And in case, for those of you who don't know, Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of those QAnon people. Um, and so that's concerning
She's
if you care
practically the
about
QAnon queen.
facts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's
if you care
the
about.
first president.
No, she would be his vice. He wants to run as the president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His ego would not allow. Yeah, no. He would not run as vice president. No, absolutely not. He wants the shiny desk.
And she also said that if he doesn't pick her as a running partner, he has considered giving her senior official role in the Justice Department or some other key administrative role. Which I don't know if she can be trusted. She is the QAnon queen, but that's still very concerning.
She shouldn't be in government at all.
Neither should Trump. After
Neither
Jan
should
6.
So the reality of it is that we live in a pretty shit scenario. We are staring down the barrel of increased Republican hostilities, and they are legislating against our existence. Anyone who knows anything about the historical lead up to the collapse of the Weimar Republic can start to see the similarities here in America. It's not good. We are heading towards a fascist theocracy with trans people being the tip of the wedge, which means we're probably going to be the tip of the genocide as well.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying the G word up on YouTube as well. Don't demonetize me, YouTube. I'm just talking
The
about
gender slide.
Don't
Yeah.
don't demonetize because this is real. This
Yeah.
is not.
This is for educational purposes.
Mhm.
Also, if you needed more reason to hate Trump, he also claimed that journalists who protect the anonymity of their sources deserve to be jailed, and not only jailed, but they deserve to be sexually assaulted inside prison, which he said to a huge rally who laughed at his prison rape joke.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. What a great guy. Real upstanding citizen. He's just a normal guy, you know? I mean, yeah, normal guys make jokes like that. No offense, dudes. But everyone has a friend that makes jokes like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're in a shit situation and there's no easy way out. And in fact, especially with like the court case of Moore v. Harper. Do any of you know about that? Moore v. Harper?
Could you give us a refresher, please?
Yes. It is the independent state electors doctrine case, which would allow...
I did hear.
Yeah, which would allow Republican-controlled houses of states to decide, meh, who cares about democracy? Instead, regardless of whatever the voters of that state say, we're just going to choose the electors to vote Republican every single time. And the courts are not allowed to say that's unconstitutional. We can gerrymander as much as we want, and the courts are not allowed to stop us. There should be no checks and balances on any of our powers. We should be allowed to be as undemocratic as possible, as flagrantly as we want. And there should be nothing to stop us, nothing to restrain us, nothing to hold us back. It is being sent to the supermajority conservative Supreme Court to be heard. I made a video on this several months ago, and I titled that video, "We May Very Lose Our Democracy in a Couple of Months." And I was right. We may entirely lose our democracy that way. So on top of all of the shit that's happening everywhere else, we might also lose that. And
are we in a democracy?
Yes.
Democratic Republic,
Yeah,
which is
it's
like
a
a
Democratic
subcat
Republic.
of Democrats.
It's just a poorly functioning one.
Is it?
It's
Democracy would just people, though, right? But corporations can participate in the electoral process. So is that still like democratic?
Well,
let me put it to you this way: if voting didn't matter, Republicans wouldn't be trying so hard to stop you from doing it.
it also, I think, depends on how immune the general public is to corporate propaganda, because a lot of that money that they're getting from corporations for lobbying and stuff
Oh yeah, I made a video on this.
is used for propaganda. Or like the advertisements for campaigns and such. Which,
Yeah.
as we've seen, sometimes a lot of money in a campaign can be really helpful in the case of, like, Donald Trump. And other times, you may not actually need all that much money, like with Bernie Sanders. So it really depends on how smart the general public is able to be.
Yeah.
And wasn't there that one super rich dude that he couldn't even buy his way through the election? Like,
Yeah,
he spent all that.
he spent almost $1 billion and still lost.
Yeah.
Which honestly bodes really well for America's future. That makes me happy that even with so much money, you still can't be guaranteed to win. Which, take that, oil lobbyists. You will lose eventually. Which, speaking of oil lobbyists,
here's what I'm hoping. Okay. We have to leave it to the hands of fate about Moore v. Harper. I don't know of any legal way that we can stop the Supreme Court from hearing that case and ruling in a way that screws us. Biden seems unwilling to pack the court, unwilling to impeach judges. So
which is absurd.
Yeah, it's absurd. It's shit. He should be doing more. We are on the verge of a dying republic, of collapsing into a fascist theocracy, and he's not doing enough.
Especially when it comes to, like, the Supreme Court justices. Like, I'm pretty sure at least a couple of them have committed impeachable offenses.
Specifically, Thomas, not excusing himself when ruling on cases that involved his own wife. That's a clear conflict of interest, and yet he didn't recuse himself. But what I'm saying is, my one hope is that either Bernie or someone like Bernie runs in 2024. Which, in all reality, it might be Pete Buttigieg. Obama 2.0. It looks like it's going to be him. He's keeping his name in the news. He ran a admittedly really good campaign, going from mayoral candidate to a serious presidential contender to Secretary of Transportation. He ran a good
Mr.
campaign.
Buttchug?
Pete Buttigieg, yes. Careful, you can't make fun of him. He's gay.
That's fine.
I saw a video on TikTok calling him the F slur and saying that he was just like all of the other people. I don't remember who it was. It was somebody calling him out for being a bad, like, just regular person, or not a regular person, but like a regular like, not very progressive person. They were calling him out for not being far enough left.
So I don't like the idea of another middle ground or milquetoast neoliberal running again, even if they talk real good, even if they're really, really smart, even if Obama himself was running again, popular guy as he is, smart guy as he is, they're not gonna fix the problems.
What if AOC ran?
She'd get
AOC
assassinated.
has said that she's not going to run. She's
But
more
what if she did? Just run with me for the hypothetical.
I would be really concerned for her safety.
I'm not. She would have security, undoubtedly.
Don't security.
The problem is I'm not super on her legislative like history. Like Bernie ran, and Bernie has a legislative history that's like 1,000,000 miles long. Man's been here since we threw tea in the harbor. Like,
okay, he's not that old. Jesus.
Pretty old.
For those of you who did not get American history, it's not that old, I swear. That was a funny joke.
He had a strong legislative record of being both the longest serving independent in the nation's history, and being the amendment king, and being like passing bills and being in Congress for a really long time. So when he was running for president, that he could like run the administration really well because he'd proven on his legislative record where he stood on every single issue. He'd been tested, battle hardened. AOC is a lot newer, a lot fresher. Sure, she's got a lot of fire on her name, and I believe Obama was also pretty new. He was like the 5th black senator ever elected to Congress, and then he became president. I don't remember how many terms in the Senate he served before becoming president. So maybe she could run, and that would be cool if she did. But I would personally like to see someone who's got a little bit more legislative history under their belt. Unfortunately, there's just not that many. So we might see Elizabeth Warren run again, and feelings aside of how she treated Bernie towards the end of her campaign, she's got the right politics. And if they've got the right politics, I'll back them because I don't have a choice not to. I don't have the luxury not to. Hell, if Pete Buttigieg runs and has a decent chance of beating Donald Trump, I'll bite my tongue and vote for him, even though I don't particularly like him. Them's the shits.
Allow me to use problematic speak for a second. I do find it upsetting that like our biggest like potential runners that we would back are also like would be historic presidencies. Like we would have like the first gay president or the first woman president, which in and of itself is going to turn off a lot of the middle ground people, and going up against, established fascist cis white straight man. It's really hard to combat, and it makes me nervous considering the like political climate of this country, because like yes, we are moving forward, we're becoming more progressive, but a lot of people are digging their heels in the sand and like almost becoming less progressive than they were as a reaction to these ideas that they don't like. And so that scares me when I see that like one of our best candidates is a gay man, because that means we're just gonna have to fight that much harder. than if we had like some milquetoast straight old white man, you know?
Yeah. And I'm currently watching through FD Signifier's video essays on Obama, and they're pretty good. Obama kind of set the precedent for being a minority, but being like, well, I mean, Obama created the stereotype of black excellence, of being extremely smart, and also extremely black, and
Or like
being
one of the most modern
unapologetically so.
examples. Mm.
And unfortunately, I think anyone who follows in his footsteps might, or are definitely going to have to learn lessons from his campaign. It's going to be his campaigns, and it's going to be Bernie Sanders, hopefully, that you learn from. Don't take. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze.
Do it. Sneeze.
Don't
into
take
the mic.
into the mic, right onto the viewers' faces. Don't I would hope that they don't take money from billionaires, that they show a real genuineness, just like Bernie and Elizabeth Warren did, of not taking money from multi-billionaires and corporations and super PACs, and instead raising money through small donations, and fundraising and connecting with the little people, and not becoming an detached elitist. I would like to see that. I'd like to see them connecting with the young people, the future of this country. Bernie does a really good job of this, but also Bernie's really old, and we can't really depend on him to keep doing that. So if Bernie did run and Bernie did win, I would like to see him pick a much younger but equally as passionate and skillful vice president, either as someone who could replace him should the worst happen, or when he's finished his run, he can pass the reins off to a viable vice president who's also a progressive and can continue the work.
You alright, Kat? Is there a dog?
Sorry, there is a dog.
It's okay.
He barks a lot.
It's okay. Love dogs. And yeah, that would be the dream team. Bernie and a spry youngster to keep going after he has to retire eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I would love that. Anyway, what do you have on your screen there? We've been looking at her for a while.
Yeah, let me go ahead and close the Discord. Hi. So, this is Eva. Super excited to chat with Buck Angel in a short while. Gotta admit, I'm a teeny bit starstruck. We need as many possible to stand up to the woke tyranny, and I'm doing my part. Yes, I'm a right-wing trans woman. Now, there's a lot of things wrong with this. First of all, they're talking with Buck Angel, a prominent, TERF, basically. He hates non-binary people. He goes after them a lot. He's a trans medicalist. He's a trans man.
Can you explain to our viewers what a trans medicalism is?
Trans medicalists are people who believe that the only true trans people are people who have severe gender dysphoria, body dysphoria, and who transition medically. That's hormones and surgery. Only then are you considered a true trans person. And that obviously excludes a lot of non-binary people, a lot of people who can't afford or don't want to go through, or poor people, or people who don't want to go through the various surgeries. Basically, they only subscribe to an extremely narrow definition of a trans person in an effort to be seen as one of the good ones, the acceptable trans person. They see it as a mental illness, and not as just a state of being or an identity. However, there is another thing wrong with this. As some keen-eyed viewers may point out, down here, that little symbol hanging on her back wall. That one right there? Yeah, it looks familiar because it's the Nazi black sun. Literally. It's a Nazi symbol.
In her living room.
In her living room. I like this comment right down here. Someone needs to tell Homegirl that they aren't going to spare her just because she's right wing.
It's really true.
Yeah.
Although I gotta say her lipstick color is like really nice, but that's it. That's the only compliment I can give her. Do not
simp for the right wing?
I'm not simping. It's a good color choice. However, her decor choice, much more questionable.
Yeah.
As well as her beliefs.
Clearly,
like, is she just fiscally conservative, or is she like a trans medicalist as well?
Well, they're talking with Buck Angel, and they're starstruck. So,
probably.
I'm gonna say yeah, probably.
That sucks.
I'll say this much. Grifting on the right as a minority is so fucking easy because there's so few of them. You can just be like, yes, I'm a member of a minority. You all remember that that fucking joke account that was a Twitter account. They had student loans, and so for like 5 or 6 tweets, they complained about how they were a right-wing person being canceled online, kicked out of their house, and they were being kicked out of their college for standing up for Trump. And then they posted like their GoFundMe, and conservatives like overflowed their GoFundMe. And they're like, sweet, thank you. By the way, I was lying. I'm a leftist. Go fuck yourselves. You dumb motherfuckers.
And that's why you should always be careful when donating money, because you should quadruple check. You never know where your money's going.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it might be going. I love that. I don't condone it, but goddamn, that's pretty brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was my...
Are we talking about the soup people now?
Yes, we can talk about the soup people now.
Fuck yeah. No more doom scrolling.
Yeah. So for a much lighter story to end on a happier note, y'all remember a few days ago went viral on Twitter. Some activists went into a I think British museum, and they took a can of soup and they splashed it on one of Van Gogh's paintings, and then they glued themselves to the wall in protest over how petroleum companies fund museums, and they get disproportionate amounts of funding instead of green investments. I'll let them give the explanation. Let me go ahead and close the... Here we go.
A trusty soup can, got my brand now. I would like to make one thing perfectly clear. We did no damage to the painting whatsoever. I was in court yesterday, heard that there's been minimal damage done to the frame, which is repairable and replaceable, and absolutely no damage done to the painting. It was behind glass, and we never ever would have considered doing it if we didn't know that it was behind glass and that we wouldn't do any damage.
Yeah, so to be clear, because a lot of people online were worried, no damage was done to the painting itself. It was behind glass. They knew that. Throwing the can of soup on the glass in front of the painting was just part of the demonstration. And they did it knowing that the glass was in the way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, we were sat there still glued to the wall. They wiped it off with a bit of kitchen roll. I recognise that it looks like a slightly ridiculous action. I agree, it is ridiculous. But we're not asking the question, should everybody be throwing soup on paintings? What we're doing is getting the conversation going so we can ask the questions that matter. Questions like, is it okay that Liz Truss is licensing over 100 new fossil fuel licenses? Is it okay that fossil fuels are subsidised 30 times more than renewables when offshore wind is currently 9 times cheaper than fossil fuels? Is it okay that it is there in action that has led us to the cost of living crisis? Where this winter people are going to be forced to choose between heating and eating? This is the conversation we need to be having now, because we don't have time to waste. Last year, Sir David King said what we do in the next 3 to 4 years will determine the future of humanity. So we're using these actions to get media attention because we need to get people talking about this now. And we know that civil resistance works. History has shown us that it works. I'm stood here today as a queer woman, and the reason that I'm able to vote, the reason I'm able to go to university, hopefully someday marry the person I love, is because of people who have taken part in civil resistance before me.
What an absolute G.
Yeah.
God damn.
Love
She
her.
is so great.
Yeah. Honestly, like the archetypically good form of like protest. Do something that really kicks off the conversation, really gets people talking, but didn't do any damage, but shifted the conversation to be talking about the issues that they wanted to represent. And in this case, it was the fact that oil gets subsidized 30 times more, even though wind and solar are 9 times cheaper. An absolute win of some activism and demonstration that young people. But I'll leave off because we're getting pretty close to the end of our hour here.
Wait, can I say something?
Hang on, let me finish. The young people are rising up. You know, we saw earlier that more people are voting now in early voting than had been in the record-breaking 2018, and I encourage people to keep doing that. Vote early, vote as early as you can, and vote Democrat, obviously. The young people are becoming more active. Millennials and Gen Z are some of the most progressive and most left-leaning generations that have been there in the past 100 years. We have the potential to make progress. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of the power is held by people who are a part of this fucking silent generation. They're holding a lot of power and they're screwing us over. It's gonna be a fight. But no matter the outcomes of that fight, we're the ones who will survive to see the end of it. They are old and dying. And sure, our medical advances improve and extend their lifespan by a few meager years. But they're going to run out eventually. They are slowly tipping over the edge of twilight. We have to, right now, fight as hard as we can to prevent them from doing any damage and to undo the damage they've already done, and then build a brighter and better future together. And I don't want us. We have more V. Harper on the horizon. We have a Trump 2024 run on the horizon. We have the possible loss of the House on the horizon. I do not want anyone in the audience to give in to cynicism, to give in to despair. Our enemies want you to give in to despair. They want you to give in to cynicism. They want you to doom scroll. They want you to be depressed. I said it earlier. If voting didn't matter, why are they trying so hard to stop you from doing it? Why are they spending so much money to prevent you from being activated, from being an active participant in our democracy? Why are they trying to intimidate you at the voter box? It is not because you are powerless, but because you are powerful, and we are powerful together. And we have never been more together than we have ever before. So stand together, vote early, vote together, and let's save our democracy and step forward into a brighter day for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I got a little carried away there.
No, it's beautiful.
I've been watching Obama's speeches, and he hits on themes of hope and change, and I think that's actually a really good thing to hit on, even though I disagree with him politically.
I also just wanted to throw some information out there. The people who threw the soup at the painting in London are part of an organization called Just Stop Oil, for those in the UK, as well as a similar incident with mashed potatoes on a Monet painting happened recently. And they are part of the group, I believe it's called, I had it just now. The Last Generation. And this was in Potsdam's Barberini Museum. I also want to point out that in every single media coverage of the soup and the mashed potatoes, they always specify the price of the paintings. And to quote one of the protesters themselves, What is worth more, art or life? Is it worth more than food? More than justice?
Beautiful
all.
words. At this point, I'm going to give each of our guests an opportunity to give their closing statements and to shout themselves out. Kat, go ahead.
I'm not sure what to say, but it was nice to be on the podcast with you guys today. And you can check me out on YouTube or TikTok. I'm primarily posting on YouTube for my more serious content, and then I just shitpost on TikTok. But it was really fun to come on here. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, lovely. Glad to have you. Sweetie Python.
Hi, you can find me on all the platforms, but you should definitely follow me on Twitch, because that's where I spend a lot of my days. Also, make sure to become ungovernable. That's your challenge for the week. Love you guys.
Lovely, lovely.
Goodbye.
Go ahead and check out our guests. I have linked them both in the description down below. And I plead with you, just as I did my last speech, remember, we are stronger together. Do not give in to doom scrolling. Get activated. Get informed. Get out there. Touch grass. Talk to people.
Listen to
talk
this
to
podcast
friends.
while touching grass.
Like the stream. If you'd like to see more of us, support us on Patreon as we grow our reach and our voices to elevate trans voices higher into the mainstream. Doing this podcast, while I enjoy it a lot, it's not the only thing I want to do. There's YouTubers who have pushed people to join boots on the ground campaigns for members of Congress, and I think that's fantastic. And as we grow bigger, I'll be employing tactics like that of get out the vote campaigns. Just remember, and I want to hit on this point, I'll leave you with this, and I won't give another big speech. If voting didn't matter, if your activism didn't matter, if you didn't matter, then why are they trying so hard to stop you? It's just like in video games, that age-old rule. You're heading in the right direction if you're facing a lot of enemies. And with that, I've been Lady Avalon. This is Late Night Serotonin from Serotonin Studios. Have a good evening. Have a good night.